Good. So I'm looking at page 37. That's the song. What I consider the support for that is the previous page had just introduced right hand chords. This is the newest thing for you. So I like to focus first on the pink boxes because I think that gives you the big picture. That's the chord. You can see it all at once. Then above, it's broken into a broken chord or arpeggio. I'm doing this a little faster now because I've already done this. Top of the page, it focuses on that new note reading a B. It shows the keyboard graphic with the note on the page, and your thumb will kind of share itself over two notes. Now, to do this, you do need the skill of the chords in the left hand, which is page 34. And I've done that before, so I'm not going to go over that. How do we need that when there's no chords in the left hand? The reason is the left hand kind of sketches outlines of chords. So the first two measures, that's a melody, but those notes together make the C chord. If we look at the second line, it's not so cut and dry. And the reason it's not so, let's say, cut and dry is because it's a variation of the G7 chord. But I think you can probably hear that G chord sound or the G7 sound. So the note, the B in the left hand is definitely on that previous page. So I started this before focusing on line 1 and 3 and how similar they are. I'm going to start this right away with both hands because I broke it down before one at a time, and it's mostly left hand. So here we go, getting your hands set up. Left hand starts. That's a tie. You got to hold that. You got to keep it down. And if we compare that to line 3, very similar. Now, why do I teach it that way, jumping? It's kind of part of like the reason I gave you like the ideas diminishing returns and the 80-20. They're so similar. If you get one and go right to the other, there's a few differences, but it's so similar, you can keep your focus and knock them out together. If you go line 1, 2, now I'm talking initially, not once you know it, it's just completely different. If you go 1, 3, there's a lot of reinforcement there that keeps happening just because of the situation that they're very similar. They're the easiest things. What is harder or different in line 3 is half notes. A few of them are now 2 quarter notes, but we're going to focus more on lines 2 and 4. This is where we have new stuff in the left hand. Starting with a 4 on the D in the left hand. Big stretch. Stretch back. So you're going to reach down and at the same time be able to reach back. So I'm going to show you with this hand. Your 4 and your 5 have to stretch out a little bit. Instead of just being next to each other on adjacent notes, they have to stretch, and that may feel a little bit weird at first. So here we go. My right hand is ready with a C chord, but my left hand is actually suggesting the G or the G7 chord. And again, I'm holding the tied note. That's a very long note. Now, just in case you're not sure how it is that I'm saying that's a G chord, let me see if I can fake this a little bit. I'm going to change the melody into the right hand. I'm going to start at the beginning. from a C chord to a G7 chord. Sorry. G7 chord. So there's a harmony here that's kind of implied by the melody, but when you're just starting out, you might not notice that. You might see it as individual separate things. As you keep studying music and learn more about chords and theory and harmony, you start to recognize these patterns. So let's do line 2 again. My reach back, hold the E. The only difference between 2 and 4 is the last note. So if you focus your effort on line 2, knocking that out, all you really need to do, you might just start in the beginning of line 4 and try it, or you might start at the end, just to kind of test that out. So here is the whole line. If you miss that C, you might circle with a pencil. Okay, 38, 39, I talked about them. They're just practicing the 2 chord. That's all this is. We looked at page 40, 3/4 time signature, 3 beats in a measure. We have a dotted half note. It gets 3 counts. It's a half note with a dot after it, and it's after. Later on, we're going to get notes with dots over or under, but this is after. So I'm going to play this song. And sorry for all the coughing. I have allergies and they're year round, and right now they're troublesome. So I'm not sick. Don't worry about that. I just try to deal with it. I started you off on this first 2 measures, C chord. Place both hands and just roll up. Last class, I focused more on that, and I focused on the sections. The last 2 measures, right hand is simple. So this is how I'd approach it until it's easy. Break it into sections. Once you can do the last 2 measures hands separately, get them together. Do that a couple times. Now, when you put that line together, you could just try it as is. What I tend to do when I'm doing this, like in the classes where, I do little bits and then people can try it, I have people start in the beginning. I'm trying to think of how to say this. We're going to leave out the left-hand chords at the end. So we're focusing on the moving part. It's kind of like melody. Right here, keep the right hand going. So without talking, what that does is help smooth measure 2 with that pattern. It helps kind of smooth that into, without that challenge of suddenly having to play 2 hands. But as you do that, you're going to start knowing what it sounds like. Then you can put it together by putting a pause before you need to have both hands together. Get your right hand ready, get your left hand ready, and then move. If you have to pause, the idea is you try to pause rather than barge ahead if you think you might make a mistake. Now, we focused on that last time. The second line's almost the same, except at the end, the very last measure is a dotted half. At the end of line 1, it's a half note and a quarter rest. So let me play the two lines together, and I'm going to focus on pointing out that rest. 1, 2, rest. 1, 2, 3. That's a small detail, but in music you need to learn to notice small details and to interpret them. So it's kind of put in there for that purpose. It's not put in there to bug you because it's almost the same but tricky because it's different. Because in music you need to learn that kind of thing. So we are going to move on. Page 41, it's talking about writing. It's one of those thinking pages. It's a theory page. What they're asking you to do is they're asking you to write counts in the boxes at the top, like 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, where you see the half note. They have some math using note values. It's explained there. I'd look this over if this is new to you. Reviewing dynamics. And we're not really doing dynamics. I'm not grading you on that. Partially because in the beginning, I don't think it's feasible for people to do everything at once, but also partially because many of you don't have that option with your keyboard. So be aware of it. If you continue piano, at some point you're going to want a piano that it responds to your touch. And then you can do loud and soft. The next exercise is nothing more than just the chords, like the other pages. Now, we are on page 32, and I'm just checking our time here because I definitely want to get to 45. So I'm going to introduce this. I'm not going to go into all the detail, but I'm going to start it. A slur. If you have your book in front of you, at the top of the page, there's that curved line like we had the tie. That was a curved line. But what's different? Now, if you look at the page, you might assume that what's different is it's longer, but that's not really the main point. It often is longer because it covers more notes, but that in itself is not what makes it different. It's how it functions, what it does. A slur covers different notes. It could be 2 different notes. It could be a whole line of different notes. There could be some of the same notes in the line. But if there's any note that's different, it's not a tie. A tie is always just 2 identical notes next to each other. What does it mean? It means play smooth. Now, some of the keyboards you have may not really make that easily doable. The keyboards themselves just might not have what's needed to make it really super smooth. Like it might be the kind of sounds you have. So try to play smooth. This is smooth compared to not smooth. That's called detached. There's another that's going to be staccato. We're not going to get that in this term. You want to go for smooth, where you almost overlap just a little bit to make it sound smooth. And the slur itself doesn't actually change how you're playing. Basically, they are introducing terms, signs. It means smooth. It means something else too. And sometimes it'll mean just smooth, and sometimes it means it's a phrase. Just like in sentences, a phrase is a group of words that tell part of a thought. In this case, each phrase is one line. That's the end of the phrase. Then there's another phrase. So let's start with those 2 lines. Melody, left hand. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I'll go a little slower. 2, 3. So how are you going to approach this? You're probably going to do that first. Couple times. Do it till it's easy. Now, you could start getting the right hand together, but let's just look at the next line. Only one note is different. The first ending goes up, second ending goes down. Now, when those get easier, you're going to start putting some right hand. You might just do half a line at a time. And repeat that till it feels a little easier. Then do a little more. Pause if you need to. Different chord. So maybe you'd stop there and focus on adding that third measure. Take your time to think. It's your brain that gets it going. When you're ready, next step. Now, you might now start in measure 3. It's going to sound funny because it's the middle. But that way you can rapidly focus on that spot. If you keep doing the whole line, you spend more time doing the easy stuff, and that's like related to that point of diminishing returns. You want to focus your energy on the stuff that's newer and different and harder. The next line is just different with one note at the end. This is what's different. You may want to put a little circle there if you find you miss it. I want to say it's somewhat common, like not everybody does it, but it's something people sometimes miss. Now let's compare that. I'm going to play you the next 2 lines. Something interesting, a tie and a slur. What's going on there? A dotted half ties to another dotted half, but the whole line has a slur. So you'll sometimes see them together. You're probably going to learn it the same way, melody first. And you do that till it's easy. Next line. This time, go down and tie. When that got easier, you would then start working through these lines the same as you do the beginning. But I think for now, that's enough of an intro for this. It's enough that if you're working on this and you've got videos of the song, you could do more if you want to. But let's do a little bit more because I really want to get to 45. So Day is Done is a pretty simple, it's an exercise. It combines things that are a little similar. I'm going to play it for you. Each line is identical except for one note. That all has a slur. This is different. So this is the kind of a thing, this isn't really so much a song as it's a little bitty song, but it's more an exercise. It just gives you a little variety using some of these the chords, and you've got the slur there. You're getting used to that. There's boxes for you to fill in. So you might focus on that 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That rhythm. Okay, so you can take a peek at that, and here's where I wanted to get to. So I always love getting to this point. If you have your book, 45, there's support page here. On the support page, the focus is getting to an F chord. We've already done that. They're starting it, but we've already done that, and this is what it looks like. At the top of page 45, there is an exercise, a chord drill, doing each one 4 times. Here's the F chord. That will set you up for this song. I'm going to just quickly play through the song, and I'm going to focus a little bit on the beginning. The whole song this in the beginning, and we did what's used in the first line. Holding that. And 4 chords, and it repeats. So as you kind of decide where you're going to focus your practicing on, we're going to have a quiz coming up, and then there's going to be a second one. For this song, I think you ought to do that first line because we've already done it a little bit, and try to do it looking at the page. There's something else new here. There's a pink box. It's called an incomplete measure. In the beginning, there's not 4 beats. It's an incomplete measure. Sometimes songs start with what's called a pickup measure or pickup notes or an incomplete measure. At the very end of the song, we see that extra beat that's missing. And when the song would repeat or overlap, it would be a full measure. This is kind of common. You're going to see this more and more. Initially, I would not worry too much about trying to calculate and count it, but rather, how does it sound? Just do it. If you finish this term and you really like piano and you go on, you'll have more drilling with this type of thing. And over time, this is going to become second nature. But I think, just with that initial exposure, I think most of the value initially is a little reading and more playing. So I'm going to play you, we have 3 minutes. I'm going to play you just one time line 2. Here's where the challenge is. It's going to be right, left, right, left. And that's why I don't do this in the beginning, but I really like doing it in the beginning because line 1 is pretty doable. So we're actually going to stop, but I'm going to play you part of another example. Page 47 is another version of the same song with the melody in the left hand. Let's just listen to what half of that sounds like. So what's going on here? This is just teaching skills that you need to play, and it's kind of doing it step by step and adding more. So we're going to stop there.